Tactical 16 radio.
Fire in the hole!
Silent J.
This is Tactical 16 Radio, and I am Silent J. It is December 10th, and it is snowing again in the west coast of New York, aka Buffalo. I'm tired of the snow already, and it's not even officially wintertime yet. But anyway, thanks for tuning in tonight. We'll be live until 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can also check this show out later on YouTube. Well, you can watch the show live now on YouTube, but you could also check it out later, and then also on Podbean and iTunes. If you are listening to us, you got here one of two ways, either through vetsonmedia.com. Go to vetsonmedia.com for all your veteran radio listening pleasure on the internet. We have shows like Tactical 16, Center Mass Radio with Rob and myself, again, Silent J. And then also Vets On Radio, that show, which is on Thursday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Those are really cool guys. Ivan, he's been on my show recently, and also No Limits Radio on Saturday morning, and a bunch of other shows. Oh, and JD's Rockin' Sports. Even though JD does like to flub fantasy football numbers and our Vets on Media football pool, I don't know how I'm doing that bad in that league. So I think it's JD because he's a Patriots fan and I'm a Bills fan. So I blame him on all my ills in football this year. But in my other league, I'm doing good. In the Anderson Family League, my old buddy, I'm in first place, as I should be in every league that I'm in. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. And this show's also brought to you by Tactical16.com. Check out Tactical16.com for all your veteran book pleasure. We publish books written by veteran authors. We have a bunch of books from some really cool authors, such as Chris Hernandez, Justin Jordan, Rob Lewis. Some titles: Love Me When I'm Gone, Stories of a Mortuary NCO. What else? Line in the Valley, Brave Rifles by Eric Shaw, our president and CEO. A bunch of cool books. So go to Tactical16.com and maybe find yourself a book that you may enjoy, or somebody for the holidays. Since Christmas and Hanukkah and every other thing, was it Kwanzaa is the other one? A bunch of stuff going on this month in the world of the holidays. So get yourself a book, and or get your loved one a book. Maybe you know a veteran. Buy them a book, okay? So they're affordable and they're cheap. You can buy them in paperback and also in ebooks through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So check out Tactical 16 Publishing on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles. And I know they're in the shelves in a few stores in like Texas, California, I believe Colorado, Florida. So we're creeping along and trying to get our books on shelves in multiple states. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick break, listen to a word from our sponsor, and then we're going to be talking to this evening's guest.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs host over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
I don't know what you guys are waiting for. Check out ncfairs.com and maybe you can find yourself a job online. But now to this evening's guest. We've been talking back and forth a few weeks, minus the storm where I was without power and heat and food for a little while, and a solid roof over my head as I'm looking at one of the lingering cracks. I have Michael Davis II. If that is not the name of an author, I don't know what is. Thank you for being on. And I was going to say, you do have an amazing name to put on the book as the author. That's like an official author's name right there.
Hey, thanks. I really appreciate you having me on. And yeah, obviously, thanks to my dad for giving me such a wonderful name. The awful truth is, my first name's Ernest, so it's hard to go through being called Junior. So I was never Junior around the house. I was always Michael, and then, but I still wanted to, pay respect and honor to my dad. So stuck the E back on there for my official name, if you will.
Nice, nice. And tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to be here right now.
Wow, that's a long and story. Anyway, see, I joined the Army right out of high school. Went to the first Gulf War. Went to Bosnia later on. Uh, various duty stations, various jobs, all as an MP. Of course, I know a lot of the listeners out there are going to be combat arms and automatically hate me. So, and I get that.
Friday nights when it came to me. I just want to let you know that.
Fair enough. But in my defense, for the first probably 9 years of my career, I was mostly what most people refer to as a combat or field MP. I did most of my time out in the woods in Humvee. And then got into investigations at Fort Benning, and then the 9/11 came along and went back to Fort Benning. I was living in England at the time with my ex. So then went to Iraq several times and Afghanistan, and then medically retired, and here I am talking
Nice.
to great people on the radio.
Yeah, I personally, I got about, just over 14 years in. I'm stuck in purgatory right now, going from active duty into the reserves, and they can't quite get the coding down correctly. So right now, I'm without a home. I'm in limbo and between RLS and a few other data centers. I'm just waiting for somebody to hit the key to let me go into the reserves now. So,
You got a whole new layer of bureaucracy on the reserve side. So
yeah. I did that before, and it is whatever. It's 6 more years, and then I got 20, so I'm good there. But what made you transition from the military to become a writer? Were you always a writer, an author, or is this something you did in your spare time and that you
well,
started off? Your book's in front of me right now, which we'll get into in a minute. But how did you become an author?
well, I actually had this really horrific English teacher in first couple of years of high school. Actually, every English teacher I had in high school was pretty horrific. I imagine most people's were, but I still had that sort of passion for telling a story and whatnot. And then, of course, growing up, I grew up in Florida. My dad was state law enforcement, but he grew up around all the history of the state and kind of took me around to every state park and every non-state park and little hidden old piece of a fort here and there, and just showed me around all this really cool old historical stuff throughout the state. Well, I started writing about stuff like that pretty early on, and actually the second book, the first book, Huguenots and Catholics, that one had its genesis, believe it or not, in high school. I started out as a short story, and then later on, right after I want to say right after the first Gulf War, I tried to do a little community college in between other stuff, as we all try to do. I hope all you soldiers out there are trying to do. Get your education. And then I wrote an essay, kind of used that short story as a basis, wrote an essay. Finally, it came out to be my senior thesis for my undergrad work, and eventually I just published it. So that's kind of the short version. I hope.
I'm in I'm in college right now, and I was never a fan of English. The only reason why I was passable in high school is because one of my athletic coaches was also my English teacher. And you know, you fail, you don't play. I just passed, and then I was able to play. So it kind of helped me, but it also hindered me in the long run. And one of my favorite classes now, I'm in a writing class, and I was dreading it before the semester started, and I absolutely love it now. I've written in the past. I've written articles for online magazines and things of that nature, but nothing. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. Now that I know what I'm doing wrong or have been doing wrong in the past, it's opened up a whole lot of avenues, creatively speaking. So yeah, I never thought I'd get into my writing class, but it's probably my second favorite class this semester. So um, how is it with you, like with writing? I got your book right here, Huguenots and Catholics, for those of you that can see it right there. Um, how was it? Was it a challenge writing a book of this nature? Because it's just the title alone. You look at it, and it's not something that the typical person would write. You know?
Right. Fair enough. And yeah, I guess for the average Joe out there, they look at that and they, you know, especially North Florida around here, you go, what the hell have you not? You know, and there's a high school here actually, Jean Rabeau High School. Everybody calls it Reball because it's North Florida. But but that being said, it's the history that this went into this book and sort of I grew up with is the history of Northeast Florida, from sort of St. Augustine all the way up to Camp Lejeune, actually. Of course, you know, me being a native Floridian, the whole continent is La Florida. So, you know, when I become king of Florida, I'm going to reconquer North America and La Florida. But
Tell you what, you got to. You seem like you got a good head on your shoulders. Florida needs to be conquered by somebody smart. I used to live in Florida. I was in South Florida and then Central Florida,
there's your mistake.
in the Fort Lauderdale area, Coral Springs area. My sister still lives down there, and then I spent some time in Winter Park, right outside Orlando. And I've never been to a place so polarizing. I mean, each section of Florida is in and of itself a different state, basically. Compare Jacksonville or Tallahassee, the north section of Florida, it nothing in common with like Broward County and Dade County, down in South Florida. I've never been to a place that is so night and day. Every
Metropolitan. But yeah, you're right. That's one of the great things to me about this state is that you can travel. Well, first and foremost, no matter where you are, you're only an hour from the beach, and that's
yeah,
right. But also you can travel a couple hours in any direction and be in, like you said, a sort of totally different culture, different atmosphere. So it's pretty awesome. But that's exactly why I was interested in writing that. Growing up around here, I'm sure everybody's heard of St. Augustine and it being the oldest city and all that, and the Castillo de San Marcos. Well, you know, the French side of that is Fort Caroline, right down the road here. It was there about the same time, and like as you're looking, no one's ever heard of it. But the interesting thing is, you know, they killed each other, not unlike, you know, the Crusades or the modern war on terrorism. These guys were killing each other over ideals, not really uh, specifically gold or power or anything like that. They just hated each other because they were on the wrong side of the cross.
yeah. It's fascinating, the history of this country, especially early on. And what St. Augustine is, what, the oldest settlement in the United States.
Yeah, the oldest continuously inhabited settlement in North America.
In North America. Okay. Yeah, I knew it wasn't the oldest one, but yeah, continuous. Some would say, the Vikings when they made it into Canada, the oldest. But yeah, the oldest continuous settlement, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. Being a fan of history, my stepfather was he was a history major and he was a history teacher. So he drilled history into us. And we even talked about on my other show on Sunday night. We were talking about history. We had a Vietnam vet who's one of our authors, and we're talking about like the importance of history and knowing history. Sometimes you're if you don't know it, you're doomed to repeat it. But yeah, Florida has such a rich history, in terms of like the French, the Spanish, the English, then even American history between the fighting within the North and the South, and what was it what were they looking for in Florida? The Spanish.
Oh, the Ponce de Leon was supposed to be trying to find the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah, the Fountain of Youth. So I mean, it's there's so much history, and even now, I mean, there's just so many cultures. What was it like for you living in an area that is so diverse in culture and steeped in history, and then you go and travel the world and get to see even more culture? How has that helped you become maybe a smarter person or a better writer? Soaking in all these different cultures that you've been exposed to.
I don't know if it's made me any smarter, but because I'm almost as smart as a box of rocks, but it has definitely made me have a broader appreciation for different places I've gone. Like you mentioned, it is so diverse here, and excuse me, the simple fact that most people hear my accent, most people, and they don't even realize I'm Southern and from an old Southern family because I don't have the drawl. But it really is just a Florida accent, if you will. It's a nondescript accent. At least I like to tell myself. But yeah, it definitely, growing up, learning just enough Spanish to get yourself into or out of a fight, knowing, a vast tapestry of different kinds of people, it does help you when you leave the confines of your state and go to Germany or England or Saudi Arabia or Croatia or wherever, and you don't feel as alien because everybody you've known all your life has been different in one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Now, going into the book, this particular book itself right now, Huguenots and Catholics, everybody knows that the Spanish had made their way to Florida, but what's the connection with the French? Not too many people realize that there was French involvement in Florida. How does that little, like, I guess, unknown slice of history play into your book?
It's actually critical to the story itself. The story is centered around the literal war that went on. It was brief and bloody, but it was, most people consider it a war between the French and the Spanish in Florida. And basically, the Huguenots were fleeing religious oppression, just like most Europeans later on would be when they came to the New World. And they wanted to set up in this, North America in La Florida because it was, rich in natural resources and plenty of trees, plenty of water, plenty of fish, plenty of game, and in theory, gold at some point. So Laudonnière, he came down and decided to set up this colony on the St. John, what is now the St. Johns River. Back then it was the River May, hence the name NS Mayport for the naval station out there. But when he set up, he effectively set up on Spanish claimed territory. Again, the whole continent was claimed by Spain. And he set up, 35, 40 miles from the Castillo de San Marcos, or where the Castillo de San Marcos would be built in St. Augustine. So effectively, it pissed the Spanish off pretty bad and became a brief but pretty bloody and barbaric, really, war that involved the French, the Spanish, the Timucua, who were the native people who lived in the area. And it like I said, it was over quick, but it was brutal.
Yeah. Now I know the Spanish had the Spanish explorers like De Soto had the blessing of the Spanish throne. Did the Huguenots, did they have any actual ties officially with the French throne at the time, or were they more or less, like you said, like, looking for their own, slice of the pie in terms of, with religious freedom that they
Right.
could find here?
Well, yeah, and that effectively sums it up. And I mean, the Spanish royalty were Catholic, and all of the Spanish explorers at the time were Catholic. At that particular time, the French royalty were also Catholic, um, and the Huguenots were in effect Protestants, to put a really blunt, simple edge on it, and they didn't get along well with the French government, and there's ongoing strife, and actually Laudonnière had sponsors in England, and really complicated political background to it. But the long story short is they were not necessarily um, there with the sanction of the French government. However, the French government, I'm sure, would have taken whatever bonus monies or gold or whatever they could bring back.
Did that cause any turmoil? I mean, I know the French and the Spanish at that time weren't friendly. Did this cause any additional strife, historically speaking, between the two nations, or did the French be like, yeah, we don't really care for these guys?
Yeah, no, the French kind of were laissez-faire, to use a French term, about the whole thing. They definitely didn't, the era from sort of discovery until the end of the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars was basically one long world war, off and on. And those guys on both sides of it, it depended on what exactly they were going to fight over, but they definitely weren't going to go to full-scale marching across the frontier war over what they considered a border skirmish.
Right.
A bunch of French guys who were sort of out of line to begin with.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people don't realize. A lot of the earlier, I personally, my opinion, historically speaking, is the two main causes of the fighting in the New World were either wanting to try to get a bigger piece of the pie, in terms of North America, and two, was like a lot of it was spilled over from the wars that were going on in Europe from basically the late 1400s when Columbus got here up until I know the French and Indian War was basically a more or less a sub-war from what was going on in Europe. What was the importance to these nations, to these kingdoms, at the time to gain a large stake, in North America, in the Caribbean, Central America, and in South America for, their survival in Europe?
Well, they had sort of a number of goals. The Spanish had already started scoring gold down in Central and South America, and that made everybody sort of greedy and jealous. But there was also the thought that maybe there was some sort of Western passage to China and India and the South Pacific. So that was a big draw. I mean, even until the sort of mid 1800s, people were still trying to find that northwestern passage around Canada. So
with all with the ice melting up there, we are going to have a Northwest Passage, and now it's going to be, another form of fighting between, like the U.S., Canada, Russia, those countries with an Arctic reach, so to speak. So it's like still to this day, there's going to be nations.
Well, that's a mouthful. Just kidding. But yeah, I mean, the simple thing you made the comment earlier about how if we're not aware of our history, if we don't learn our history, we're doomed to repeat it. I think that's almost spot on. I would say that we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. And I also think that people forget that history is not a series of dates, not a series of beginnings and endings. You know, World War II didn't start for the United States on December 7th, 1941, and end with the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. World War II, did I say one? Anyway, sorry. World War II really started with the end of World War One, which started at the end of the Franco-Prussian War, which started at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, which started, you know what I mean? It's a river that flows. It's not a bunch of set points in history.
Yeah, and we were saying, and actually in my writing class yesterday, we're reading a certain poetry. You know, we're skipping around this one book, British poetry from World War One, and it shows the contrast, you know, of poets from these artists who were also soldiers, fighting in World War One, and it's basically like World War One was just the residue of like the Franco-Prussian War, and you know it was he was saying like how the Archduke, his assassination wasn't the cause of World War One. It was more or less a big pile of sticks, you know, soaked in gasoline, and the assassination was just basically the spark. But that had been building up, which essentially you could say from the age of exploration, you know, just had been building up, you know, for literally hundreds and hundreds of years between, you know, these skirmishes and, you know, and things of that nature. And it's just insane how you know, a bunch of little boundaries on a map can cause so much conflict. Crazy Europeans, all of them.
It's not just them, it's us too. But, yeah, I mean, and that sort of leads into the second book, believe it or not. And you know, it is Misadventures in the Middle East isn't about the global war on terrorism per se. It's about what led us to the point of being involved in the global war on terrorism.
I'd like to officially say I blame the British for most major wars that we've been in, because they were, you know, they looked in the mirror and they saw like a frumpy guy, and then they looked over at the Spanish and were like, "Oh, that's a good-looking guy. We want to be like them." So I think it's identity crisis, and the British, you know, just, you know, they saw themselves as ugly. So I blame the British on most things, even though the British are our friends, and I served with some British soldiers. A great group, yeah, great ally. But yeah, you look at the Middle East, a lot of the problems are, you know, borders, boundaries, you know, basically made up countries that weren't here, you know, 100 years ago, 75 years ago. Now all of a sudden we have, you know, these countries and, you know, the conflicts that go about these borders. So yeah, here's your other book, The Misadventures in the Middle East, Twisted Road to an Unlikely Third World War. We know what the basis is. How did you go about writing this, and what was your fascination in wanting to write this book?
Before I go down that road, I just want to say, because I know some of my friends are going to be listening out there who are British, and I don't hold British responsible for anything. I hold former British responsible.
Oh, no, yeah, not currently. Not currently. No.
I know what you meant, but I saw I was going to get those emails and calls as soon as I'm done with it.
You know, full disclosure, one Mr. E. Michael Davis II paid me $20 to say that. And all the British emails his way.
So, but on a serious note, I do have two of my kids were born in England, believe it or not. So they can go back and be British citizens if they so choose later on. But the reason I got interested in writing this book, and the reason I went down that road, at 19, as a young specialist, brand new minted specialist, assigned to 810th MP Company, which was in turn assigned to 82nd Airborne Division during the first Gulf War, I found myself in possibly the most foreign country you can imagine as a young 19-year-old from North Florida. You know, I was in the middle of the desert, not only the desert, but the Saudi desert, surrounded by Saudis. And, you know, again, 19, fresh out of MP school, so, you know, I still had the stem sticking out of my head. I was such a cherry. So I had a lot to learn, and I realized then there's some things that are absolutely gorgeous about their culture. and some things that I think that we should all, as Westerners, admire and even aspire to. You know, the hospitality, the friendliness, the warmth in conversation, the reluctance to get straight down to business, but to say hi and have some chai and chat for a minute. That spoke to my southern roots, if you will, because it's very much the same way we kind of do things here in North Florida. But then there's the dichotomy of this of the culture, which has the good and bad, everything that we've read about and seen and experienced. So that, and I realized at that moment that I was living history. I was involved in something that was new to the United States, new to the world. We had never been in a war in any major way in the Middle East. We fought a few skirmishes and stuff and participated, in a few things here and there, but we hadn't really been in such a situation before. And we were fighting against Iraqis who were quote unquote battle hardened and ready for us. And they've been fighting the Iranians for 10 years, and they had the latest in Soviet technology. They used all the Soviet tactics and stuff, which laughing about it now, but at the time we didn't know any better. The Cold War hadn't been over but a couple of months.
And it's insane because they were like the Iraqi army at the time of the first Gulf War. They were one of the, I'd say, like one of the dozen largest armies.
I think they were like fourth largest army at the time.
Fourth? Yeah, like fourth or fifth. So I think fourth, for whatever reason, stands out in my head.
Yeah.
It just shows, it's not always strength in numbers. Sometimes, we had a huge technological advantage and just, I think, better tactics. But yeah, that's like you said, the Iran-Iraq War started in 1980. Was it 80 or 81?
80.
80. Okay, and that went on until 88. So yeah, they those poor Iraqi bastards, huh? They fought for a long time. Then you got the might of the U.S. Army coming along. I just think a stupid decision on their part to invade Kuwait.
Well, and I sort of addressed that in the book. I would agree in hindsight it was absolutely a terrible decision for them. But considering sort of the missteps and miscues that the U.S. government kind of did at the time or were complicit in, I can understand, I don't condone, but I understand how Saddam and his cronies kind of came to the conclusion that we weren't going to do anything about it. Before they cross the border.
Even the Iraq War, when they kicked off in 2003, they were under the impression that they're not really gonna do this. I mean, I was over there in 2003, and from the Iraqis that I talked to, they're like, yeah, we were really surprised. We really didn't think this was gonna happen. We thought we called your bluff. Turned out wrong, but
Yeah, absolutely. I mean. From a historical standpoint, everybody looks at history again, and the Iraqis, were looking at our history. The only two fights we've been in since Vietnam of any consequence were Grenada and Panama, and both were really hard, real fast strikes on very small places. We were involved in the Middle East for a very short time in Beirut, and after a couple of terrorist bombings, we pulled out. And there's a lot of other little things that went along with that that sort of showed our hand. But, they knew that we weren't going to, stick by our guns with no negotiation with terrorists or no negotiation with bad guys or whatever, because that was all proven wrong under and not really wrong, but a fallacy under the Reagan administration. So, these guys knew, or thought they knew, that we were a big paper tiger. We had a lot of men and a lot of troops and the latest toys, but they didn't think, we were going to get involved in a full-on ground war.
Yep.
And, add to that the fact that the CIA misread a lot of things on the ground and what they did read was misinterpreted at the executive level and at the State Department. And effectively, our ambassador to Iraq was like, "Yeah, we're not going to get involved in your border dispute with Iraq or with Kuwait." Which to Saddam, that was a big green light. Like, yeah, go ahead. So
Yeah, and I think what I mean, I know there was a conflict between Kuwait and Iraq, specifically during the first Gulf War, was disputes over oil. Iraq was accusing Kuwait of was it side drilling or angle drilling? I forgot the actual term, but like basically drilling into Iraqi oil fields at coming in underground at an angle, and that's Saddam's gripe was, hey, you're taking our oil. And I know there was historically there were disputes. I think didn't they fight in like was it the 50s or the 60s? There was a skirmish
yeah,
between the two.
yeah, there was that. Like you said, it all kind of goes back to the British Mandate. As far back as the fall of the Ottoman Empire, and the British and the French took over various places. Kuwait was historically a province of Iraq, if you can even call Iraq a country before the British Mandate, but whatever. And then World War II comes along, the Brits storm up the Fertile Crescent and retake Baghdad. And the whole thing, like you said, between the maps and the British sort of being helter skelter, I think is a good word about the way they did things in the Middle East. And it all basically led to a whole bunch of pissed off people with borders drawn across tribal lands and groups of people like the Hashemites and the Kurds and the Sunnis and the Shia all in one country together. And, look what's going on now, and you can kind of see the results of that.
With that, like you said, the major groups that are in Iraq specifically, stick for this moment, just Iraq specifically. You got the Kurds to the north, you got Sunnis, you got Shiites, and then you have pockets of minorities, scattered throughout the country. I think that Iraq, as a nation, as a whole, it was doomed to fail from the very beginning. Just in terms, if you just set aside Shiite and Sunni, which is the one of the reasons why there is a fight, with Iran and Iraq, to begin with, fundamentally. But just if you look at it as Muslim Arabs, and then you have Kurds, that right there is a huge problem, because you have this huge pocket of people without a home, to call their own, and that's I think that's the basis of all, if not all, most of the fighting in that region is, your groups of individuals that didn't necessarily see eye to eye. All of a sudden, they're a country.
Roger. Yeah, I agree. The Kurds, I think, have been given the shaft by the international community at large. It's not just the Iraqis; it's the Syrians and the Turks and the Iranians. All of whom don't want to relinquish control of that. You could equate it to Palestine, and the Jordanians and the Lebanese and the Egyptians and the Syrians. None of them want to give up the land that was set aside for them, by the two-country partition in 1948.
Yep.
So, it's nobody wants to give up land. Nobody wants to, and generally they're either forced to via sanctions or whatever, or forced to at the point of a bayonet. So very rarely in history. There's been a couple of times, very, very rarely in history does anybody just sign over a chunk of land. Alaska and the Louisiana Purchase are about the only ones I can think of off the top of my head where that happened, but both of those were purchases as opposed to, yeah, sure, you can have that. That was historical yours. I mean, look at the Ukraine right now. Look at, Syria. Look at, none of these guys are wanting to give up any land. And,
You just look at dissension between like China and Japan, or China and the Philippines. They're literally arguing over rocks sticking out of the water. Not even land where you can basically sustain life on. It's just it borders. It's like if I have this rock, my border stretches out more. It's it's uh, it's crazy, and then more so in the Middle East because if you look at it, people tend to generalize Middle East between two categories: Arabs and then Jews in Israel.
Yeah.
Lebanese have nothing in common with Kuwaitis. Jordanians have nothing in common with Kurds or Iranians. I mean, just completely different people. I mean, just in terms of like Lebanon alone, you have a huge Christian population, and then you have a huge Muslim population. And I would think if you were to label anything, Lebanon more or less has more of a European feel to it, population-wise, than than some of these other countries. And then Turkey. Turkey's completely different. Different ethnicities. It's That's insane. It's crazy. If anybody ever says they have the answer for problems in the Middle East, I would call that person crazy, personally.
Well, yeah. I'll leave it at that.
You have, a very high stakes poker game, and you can't have anybody from Saddam's family because he does not know how to call a bluff. That guy would, you just need a poker game. Here you go. The loser, we'll give you Crete or Cyprus or something like that.
Right? Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, you're right. Each one of those cultures is different and separate and whatnot, and sometimes they're bound by common religions or factions of religions. Sometimes they're absolutely not. Like the Kurds, for example. Working as an investigator, speaking of interrogations and stuff like that, and no, I didn't waterboard anybody or use any enhanced interrogation techniques. I was always fortunate enough to be able to use, just like me and you are doing right now, just sort of sit down and talk to them, and occasionally use the information I had.
Old school cop. I'm sure you've used a couple phone books.
No. I did do some time at Abu Ghraib, but that was after all the scandal and everything. And believe it or not, Abu Ghraib at the time, after all the all the quote unquote torture that went on there, it was locked down. You couldn't get away with anything if you wanted to. And part of my job was kind of investigating detainee on detainee violence and counterinsurgency, and occasionally, the occasional guard doing something stupid. But for the most part, there was so much oversight that it just wasn't going to happen. I can't speak to what was going on at the time at anywhere else, but I can tell you in Iraq, Task Force 134, it was very cleanly run. But what I was going to say is, there's still approaches you can use. You can still follow the Army Interrogation Manual and use certain things. And one of the things we used to use when speaking to the various detainees is we tell them we send them up to Fort Susa, which was up in the Kurdish-held area where they had Kurdish guards, and especially if they were Sunni, Saddam Ba'athist type, they would get horrified because the last thing they wanted to do is be sent up to Fort Susa as an identified former regime member. So that works sometimes. You get them to spill a little bit. It illustrated for me that when I had an interpreter, for example, who was a Shia from Baghdad, and he literally got into a fist fight. I had to send him home. Got into a fist fight with a bunch of little kids that were in the juvenile detainee area because they said something derogatory about a Shia, and he went after him. So
yeah, that's what a lot of people don't realize. If you think spanking your child in America is bad, you should see some of the techniques that they have in Iraq specifically. I've seen it before where we're rolling into a fob or anything like that, and instantly you're swamped with with locals, whether they want something. Yeah, I missed the. Yeah, I still remember the kid that sold me what I thought was an adult entertainment DVD, and I get back to the tent and I got a Disney Pocahontas movie. Worst $5 investment of my entire life. He said it was good, Vicky. I didn't. He didn't give me a reason to doubt him. But it was funny. Like you'd get the kids that would run. You know, they'd want something, whether it was candy, food, water, whatever the case may be. And the adults had their own agendas. You'd get an adult walking through and just would knock the living daylights out of these kids. You know, it's just completely different culture. They're like respect is everything, you know, and respecting your elders, respecting somebody's, tribe, respecting somebody's, honor. That's like the biggest thing. I think that people don't understand. Like in America, like, oh, why can't you can't just live life like this over there? It doesn't work. It's a completely different culture. I mean, they have a whole completely set of a different set of rules that they live by. Honorable rules, when you strip it down, like you stick up for your tribe and you show me respect. I'm a man. But very very easy to pull a trigger over there, whether it's a closed fist to the side of the head or something else.
Yeah, it's not that much different from 19th century United States, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't Andrew Jackson beat somebody with a cane in Congress at one point?
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, I'm sure Aaron Burr would have fit right in over there.
Right.
But
and Code Duello. But
yeah, what were your experiences just working? Like you brought up one story with working with a local over there. What were some of your experiences that you took away? Just personal growth experiences, whether it was it tainted your outlook on life, or it was a like a positive outlook. Because when I was there, yeah, every Iraqi that I bumped into, good or bad, left a lingering effect, on me as a person. What is some of the things? How were you affected as a person over there?
I would say, I mean, obviously I work, my line of work in the Army, I worked with a lot of Iraqis, a lot of foreign nationals, a lot of friendly foreign nationals. But probably the single most impactful person that I met that wasn't an American was a guy by the name of Ahmed Qasim Shah. And this guy, we ran into him on like day 3 of the invasion, just southwest of Najaf. And he was like standing at this place we called 5 Points, I think it was, or 4 Points. Anyway, it's one of these crossroads just southwest of Najaf. And this cat was hanging out in a, sort of silvery looking suit with a silk shirt, nice shoes, 3-day stubble beard, looking like the Iraqi George Clooney, And next to him was this other cat that obviously wasn't the same social strata as Ahmed. And so we stopped and talked to him. Ahmed spoke passable English, and the other cat, didn't speak any English. Ahmed didn't know him. He was like, I don't know that guy. He's just kind of hanging out with me. So we're like, all right, you get in the Humvee. You, the other cat, back to Najaf. We're not taking any, excuse me, civilian refugees right now. So their cat hobbled off. And we take this Ahmed guy down to the local Huguenot guys that were hanging out with one of the airfields there at Najaf. And you're like, can you vet this guy and pump him for information, whatever? Because his whole thing was that he was a cab driver, or his backstory was he was a cab driver in downtown Baghdad. And as a cab driver, he knew all the bigwigs, knew where they lived, knew what whores they slept with, knew where the anti-aircraft artillery were in place next to a mosque or a school, etc. You're like, yeah, sure. Here's the intelligence guys, they'll pump you for it. Well, it turned out for 3 days straight, he was the #1 human asset in country. Well, that was right as, I don't know if you remember, you were there for the invasion, right? Yeah, so, we did that sort of strategic pause at Najaf and then turned sort of northeast again, headed towards Baghdad.
Mm-hmm.
That was right about then, and there was a series of airstrikes in downtown Baghdad that took out some very important stuff. But basically, he was the guy, the human source that kind of told us where everybody was, at least at 3 days prior. So we finished vetting him as well as we could. As you know, back then, vetting a Iraqi was basically putting him on a poly and see if he was lying.
Yeah.
So we vetted the guy, and it turns out, and this is something, the backstory we actually checked out, Ahmed Qasim Shab was on the Iraqi national soccer team. And I don't know if you know anything about Uday and his relationship to the soccer team, but
he was in charge of the soccer team, and he did some horrible things to guys that didn't perform well on the field.
Right. Exactly. And he did some horrible, or threatened to do some horrible things to Ahmed as well. He got to be pretty popular. He was sort of like the Beckham of Iraq at one point. And so Uday basically told him, he was like, all right, you're done playing soccer or football, So he was like, I'm not done. I'm healthy. I'm young. I'm playing. He goes, no, you're done. He's like, okay. He's like, or I can do away with your family, kind of thing. So needless to say, he became a cab driver. So he, told me some stories that were, obviously not made up. When a guy's got that look in his eyes, I'm sure you know which look I'm talking about, and he's holding back the tears. You can tell the dude's really honestly pissed off at the regime for some of the stuff he did, including having one of his friends shot right in front of him after Uday came along in his limo or whatever and picked up, pointed at the dude's girlfriend and was like, hey, get in the car. And Ahmed's bestie, was like, oh, hell no, this ain't happening. And they gunned him down right there. So.
Yeah, that's the one thing I took just that affected me personally, other than some crazy things like explosions and things of that nature, was being able to read people better than I've ever had to, because we had a lot of interaction with Iraqis, and you learned really quick who was feeding you a line of BS. And who was honest. Sometimes it was hard, and not every time you were correct in your assumptions. But I've really become a better person, better at reading people, reading someone's intentions or honesty, or if they're feeding the line of BS. Like you said. You can tell who really had a bad taste in their mouth from the regime over there. We had a guy who was he cleaned our area. He was more or less I guess you could say our housekeeper. He'd come in a couple days. He was burnt or he was disfigured, and he couldn't work under the Iraq regime because he just he had a burnt up face, and he was more or less like an undesirable. And he became a caretaker, so to speak, for us. And we had a couple of his buddies worked for us. There was like a crew of 4 of them that we really could trust and rely on for information, for goods, for service. They could get us anything from a can of spray paint to a good barber to some really strong information on who was to be trusted in the area and who was not to be trusted in the area. So that's the one thing that I took back with me, was being able to read people and their actual intentions over here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this guy, exactly. We knew whose team he was on. So he became basically one of the team. He became our our interpreter, and went everywhere with us. And we made some really poor decisions early on. Like he wanted to go visit his family in Shab, which is just outside of what is now Sadr City. Back then it was Saddam City, I think, still. But needless to say, a couple of days later, his family was attacked by remnants of the Fedayeen Saddam, and his wife miscarried. His son got shot in the arm. You know, they burned down his house. So his family all fled back to Najaf. And anyway, that really built a bond between us, and I remember that was the first time I really felt anything for a local national, on the sense that, felt sorry for him, felt sort of a brotherhood to him. His losses, his family's losses were my losses, and considering that we dropped him off at his front door, it kind of made it that much worse. Later on, a couple of years later, he ended up getting actually beheaded by Al-Qaeda after being captured. And, that was probably the single most impactful situation overall, spanning the entirety of 3 tours in Iraq that happened to me. And I realized, how awful Al-Qaeda was and how ruthless they were. And I realized that there are good people out there, good Iraqis out there who, they might not be great Muslims, but they're good people, in the eyes of Al-Qaeda or these Islamists.
Yeah, you could tell who the religious ones were and who the I guess you would in the Northeast we'd call them lazy Catholics, the guys that ate a nice steak on a Friday during Lent, or the guys during Ramadan. They'd see they told us you got to respect their customs and stuff like that. We were told don't eat around them, don't drink around them, don't smoke around them during the day during Ramadan. And this was going back in '03 because you don't want to offend them. You get the guys, you could see they were jonesing for a smoke. It'd be like 1 in the afternoon, and I miss, ask for a cigarette, and be hiding, behind one of the vehicles or behind one of the buildings we worked out of, smoking a cigarette. And there was my one buddy, his we call him the 2 guys. I don't know what happened to him. We fell out of contact with them after the war. I had a buddy of mine who conversed via email with the one guy. They were trying to get to Jordan, but we call them Rod and Saad. And Rod was fairly religious, but Saad was he liked a good drink and he liked a good cigarette, and he didn't care what event was going on, whether it was religious or not. But it was it was all out of the guise of other local nationals. He wouldn't be targeted unjustly. So, and I could definitely understand you try to go a whole month without a cigarette during the day. Crazy. I couldn't do that. But with your experiences over there, did that shape how you wrote your book, Misadventures in the Middle East, at all, or did you take everything from going through it, very historical, accuracies and things of that nature in terms of certain rebellions, you talked about the one rebellion in the late 20s that took place. Did you blend any personal experiences, or was this all just historical knowledge on your part to pen your book?
I'm going to repeat back the question only because I guess I'm having some bandwidth issues, so I'm hearing about every second word. But if I'm coming through on that end, that's good. So effectively, you're asking me if my personal experiences had an impact on writing Misadventures in the Middle East.
Yep.
All right. I don't think it could not have. I think any historian, if they're honest, recognizes their own biases, recognizes their own experiences, and uses those as opposed to completely ignoring them. Conversely, yes, I did very much try to use good sources, as close to primary sources as I possibly could, especially on historical documents. The documents of the era, I tried to use primary sources, or at least official reports of things, because I wanted to step past my bias enough to present the truth of the story. You know, as an investigator or a historian, you know, there's the two sides of every story and then the truth of what really happened. And I think as an investigator or a historian, our job is to define the truth, or define the truth that may be, because you know only God or Allah or Yahweh really knows who the truth is or what the truth is. Um, but you know, as a historian or an investigator, your job is to find out the most uh, feasible, the most realistic, the most precise storyline of what happened, and present that to your audience, whether it's a court of law or a commander for a court martial, or you know, to your audience as a historian.
And now with with your investigating, with your research in the book and your personal experiences, was it painstaking writing this book? I know with writing my book, sometimes it's a joy. Sometimes it's wonderful to sit down and write. Other times it's it's a headache, so to speak. What was your approach in actually mapping out, going from research to writing?
Well, I think overall it was a labor of love. Honestly, I enjoyed the process. You know, revisions and editing, that's always a pain in the rear end.
Yep.
I'm sure you're familiar. And, you know, it started out, Misadventures was my master's thesis, basically. So I spent the last, 6 months of my master's uh, courses working on this book effectively. So when I got ready to publish, it was a matter of it had already been peer reviewed. It had already been, published to my university's library. You know what I mean? All that was already taken care of. So it was simply a matter of formatting. Thank the gods on this one. The one I'm working on now, which is semi-biographical. I haven't really decided whether or not to go with purely biographical or make it historical fiction, because I know I'm going to piss some people off. The It's a little bit more complicated and frustrating. But this one, I wanted this, and I'd been working on it for so long that were there nights where I was like, Jesus, I really don't want to type right now? Yes, absolutely. I was using what's that, Dragon speech to text thing?
Yeah, I've wanted to use that, but I've been hesitant. To me, I want to do it the old-fashioned way, but man, I want to get that so bad. That,
Yeah, I downloaded a demo copy. Yeah, that's it, a demo copy. At one and it was all right, but it just wasn't. It wasn't for me. It's just better for me to sit down and type. I'll tell you who bore the brunt of it, honestly, were the kids and my ex at the time, and then later on my girlfriend, who I live with now. They in turn all bore the brunt um, of me being sequestered in front of a computer, and a chest high stack of books on either side of me, and 14 windows open to the UN website, and that was, I'm sure, for everyone.
yeah, my co-host Rob, he's a former Green Beret. We'll have to get you on the Sunday night show in the future. And he wrote a autobiography called "Love Me When I'm Gone," and it took him, I believe he said 4 years to write that book. And and with him being an operator, he had to really go through things with a fine tooth comb, and make sure everything was okay and proper. Now he's writing his first fictional book, and he's breezing through it. I think I want to say maybe he's worked on it for like a year and a half, and it's almost ready. to publish. I've talked to him recently, and he's gone like just a week straight editing, and that's all he's done. And it's just like there's nothing else going on in his life. He has kids, he has a girlfriend, he has a job, he has other commitments, but he's just like I'll talk to him like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? He's in Southern California, I'm in New York. He's like, well, it looks like the next 72 hours I'm going to be editing and revising, and that's like you said, the taskmaster is your computer. The taskmaster is that editing process, and that's not the fun part, folks. If you're looking to write a book, I'll publish you, but I don't want to edit. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I'll tell you the joys of writing. I'm not going to tell you the joys of reformatting or editing or venting your book. That stuff's a pain, pain in the butt.
Yeah. My last couple of duty stations, last couple of assignments, kind of spoiled me for the big army.
You've had that. You've had the come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, and fortunately, I was in assignments with troops that were spectacular. In most cases, hand-picked guys, commanders that were just incredible guys. But we were doing missions that were very specialized. Whether it was investigations or PSD, or later on working with CID, and then later on after that with SOCOM. It was just incredible. It was a great experience, the best time of my life. Like I said in Fury, it's the best job I ever had. But it spoiled me for big army, and 1 + 1 = 2, and then being effectively a disabled vet, and it was time to go. But nearly 24 years later, I don't regret any of it. But like you said, the editing process, nightmare. I'm publishing my essays from college all together in one book. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I sent you a copy of that yet for review, but I'm trying to get it edited first, and it's pretty thick. And I've got a really good friend over in England who's doing some editing for me, taking a lot of that load off of me. So hopefully when I send it to you guys, it'll be published ready. But
yeah. And here's the thing that I equate it to: a deployment. It's an adventure. Writing a book is like being deployed in country. The in processing and the out processing, that's like editing your book. Nobody wants to everybody wants to out process. You want to do it, but it's the most painstaking thing. Leaving theater and going back home. It's just like, oh my God, okay, it's 2 weeks, it's 3 weeks, or it's a week, or whatever. Every day it's like Groundhog Day, and that's what editing is like, and that's what venting your book and going through it and revising certain things. It's like the out processing period. You had your fun of being deployed, or maybe not your fun. You had that adventure. You had that moment you live for as a soldier, as a service member. Writing the book is that moment of being an author, or being a writer. It's like you get to put all that stuff on paper. Then the editing comes, and it's like, oh my God, it's a hangover. That's what it is. It's the hangover. Writing's the doing the shots, and then the hangover's the editing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, from clearing customs to cleaning the dirt off your bottom of the boots to washing vehicles to, you know what I mean. And I'm sure most of the listeners out there have gone through the process.
I hate that. And see, I was a smartass. I was an E4 back then during my deployment in 03, 04. And yeah, I was on that wash rack. What I feel is if it was like, it might have, to me it felt like 714 years straight. It was like, I'd say about 36 hours. But oh my God, like, and then you get Navy Customs come and they'd stick their finger in something and then just pull out dirt. Like, where'd you find that?
Yeah, you thought the armorer at your duty station was bad about finding carbon on your M16. Where did you get a customs? He's done 1.5 billion Humvees. coming out of the desert. He knows every nook and cranny. It's like, Jesus, seriously.
Yeah, yeah. It's just Ronnie, it's just a
But
process.
they don't clear your lungs of all the crap you breathe in over there, but they damn sure gonna clear the mud off your boots.
Yeah, oh man, I tell you what, one of the most vivid dreams I ever had. I was when I was coming back from Iraq in '04. We were in Kuwait in purgatory, getting ready to leave, and with all the stuff that we had to take, whether it was the malaria stuff, the anthrax, this shot, this pill, that pill. I think it was the malaria pill that they don't administer anymore. The one
Uh,
where you had to take it every day. I had a dream. Um, every great person started off saying that. Well, I had a dream that I was a comic book character, like that. I was a living comic, almost like an video. And I was just going through and just slaughtering all the bad guys, and I was getting all the hot chicks that had blue skin, blue pixelated skin. Most vivid dream of my life. I could still remember every moment of this dream, more so than I could remember the birth of my daughter. Yeah, 8 years ago. I'm kind of foggy on certain things. But this dream I had 10 years ago, 10 and a half years ago now. Just it's crazy. For those of you that have never taken a good drug, go and take a malaria pill. It blows out any of these street drugs out of the water.
yeah, I mean, what's this is the TBI speaking because I can't remember what I'm talking about. The sleeping pills they issue.
Yeah. The thing with me with the PTSD and everything, that might have all been false. I might have just fed you on a.
Yeah, right. What's this? The sleeping pills that are so popular, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've heard some crazy stuff.
Can't remember the name of it. Anyway,
Ambien.
Ambien, yeah. On the way to Afghanistan, SOCOM will, if you request it, they'll issue you Ambien for a flight over, which was fun. Because the nice thing about they've got dedicated birds, so you're on the bird and you bring your hammock and your sleeping bag and you string your hammock up between a couple of pallets and throw your sleeping bag up in there and pop an Ambien, and next thing you know you're in Qatar or something. And you're like, what city is it, and why was I just with that blue chick from Star Trek? So
Yeah, I'm scared because I have till this day, I have problems sleeping. I love sleep. I hate to go to sleep. I always have to be the last person up at home before I go to sleep. It's just one of those things that that I carried over from the dark side. I just have problems sleeping, but I talk in my sleep. I sometimes I've walked around in my sleep. I snore. I kick. I'm one of those weird sleepers. I don't want to take an Ambien because I don't know if it's going to intensify any of those things. That just I've heard crazy stories of people on Ambien. They'll wake up, 5 blocks away from their house in their car, butt naked. Don't know how they got there, but they took an Ambien and they slept great. They're just stuck at a red light, and they're butt naked and their Chevy S10 or their Ford Bronco or something like that. It's just like, how did I get here? I know for a fact I'd probably end up on my patio snuggling with my dog in the snow if I took an Ambien. I don't think my dog would appreciate that one bit.
yeah, I feel your pain there, brother. My girl Reagan, she's woken me up a couple of times or told me about my attitude / comment / movement to contact the bed. When she's trying to go to sleep or already asleep and I wake her up. But yeah, it's I feel you, man.
They need to write a book about appreciating the person that is dating a service member, a prior service member, who has problems sleeping. That right there, that should be, like everybody has a day. There's national this day, national that day. There should be a national I sleep next to a veteran day. And they should have their own little ribbon. Just black and white, just a fuzzy ribbon there, because that's how you're gonna wake up after sleeping next to me. Just your brain's gonna be fuzzy because I most likely kept you up all night with donkey kicks and snoring.
Right? Yeah, I had a real bad migraine the other day, which is also a sort of leftover from growing up. But I had a real bad migraine the other day, and took my migraine medicine, and of course went to sleep at like 6 o'clock in the evening. And she says, I tried to wake you up and tell you to at least don't snore right in my face while you're laying in bed. So she says I grumbled and rolled over and snored the other way. So.
See, I'm the person like I don't snore. No, I don't snore. Finally, my girl recorded me the other night. It was what was it? Friday night. I didn't have anything going on Saturday morning. Yeah, I just got done with my week of school. I'm like, I got nothing going on tomorrow morning. I'm gonna have a couple drinks. Well, on the way to having a couple drinks, I might have had a couple too many. From the comfort of my couch, I wasn't going anywhere. Well, I decided to share with the dog, and I got the dog drunk. She likes. Before anybody from PETA comes after me, my dog, it's an American Eskimo, but originally they were called German Spitz. And this dog has a taste for beer. I'll open up a beer and this dog will come running. And it's just a furry little white dog. I think genetically speaking, she's inclined to drinking beer. So I gave her a little more beer than I probably should have. And we were both passed out on the couch and I was snoring and somebody videotaped me snoring. And the level of embarrassment, I went 2 days without seeing it. Finally, like day 2 or day 3, I cracked and I'm like, let me see that video. I just had to walk away. It was like, I snore like that? I equate like 400-pound men snoring like that, not a guy that's maybe lucky with sneakers wet, on Mars being 170 pounds.
Right? Yeah, that's definitely one of the drawbacks, I suppose. What are you doing?
Yeah, I just had to throw a stuffed animal at my dog. She's at the window growling at somebody, so I just had to launch. I got a crow.
Can I take a break for like 3 minutes?
Yeah, you go right ahead. I can talk about a couple things, and I do have to play a word from our sponsors, so go right ahead, man.
I'll be right back.
You have been listening to E. Michael Davis II, author of Misadventures in the Middle East, A Twisted Road to an Unlikely Third World War, and also Huguenots and Catholics, The Fight for Colonial Florida. You can check out both these books. I'm holding them. We're going to talk to Mr. E. Michael Davis II. What? He's retired first sergeant. Oh, boy. We're going to talk about how you can find these books if you want to get these books. Let's sell some books, shall we? That's what we do. But quick, before we do that, a word from our sponsor.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
Tactical 16 radio.
Fire in the hole!
Silent J.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
Five, four, three, two, one. Tactical 16 radio.
Fire in the hole!
Silent J.
Hi, everybody. I am back. This is Silent J, and you're listening to Tactical 16 Radio. We've been talking to Michael Davis II, the most authorish names out there. But before we start talking to him again, and maybe pushing some books and finding out where we can buy these beauties that I have in front of me right now, this Sunday night, Center Mass with Rob and Silent J. You can hear us live via That'sOnMedia.com and also our YouTube channel, and whatever other way you listen to the show. We'll be live at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I think we're going to have Ivan from that show. I'm going to talk to him anyway. I'm going to try to get him on this week, and we're going to talk about race relations, and we're going to talk about just issues that are weighing heavy on society nowadays. It seems every other day in the news you hear of a white police officer shooting a black man. I'm not going to get into whether I think it's right or wrong. It just seems like everything's being heavily scrutinized now, and it's just I equate a lot of things to Murphy's Law. It just seems like if something's in the spotlight in media terms, it's going to happen over and over again. I don't know. It's crazy. So we're going to have Ivan on. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about Southern food, because Ivan is originally from New Orleans, so we were going to talk about Southern food. We're going to have a Texan talking about food. We're going to have I don't know what you call somebody from New Orleans. New Orleanser? New Orleansite? I don't know. And then me. I'm from New York. We like everything you guys like, but we a lot faster. Guys from the South, you tend to cook stuff very, very slow. You have all the time in the world to smoke your stuff, barbecue your stuff. I don't know. We in the North, we don't. We're a little more impatient when it comes to food. So if you guys practice the art form of cooking and it takes 5 hours for a good dish down there, we like to speed things up and maybe take 20 minutes to cook it. So maybe I think that is the biggest difference between Northerners and Southerners, the amount of time spent on cooking a meal, other than a good Sunday morning, a good Sunday gravy, which is in New York, Sunday gravy to the rest of the country, for the most part, is sauce. Spaghetti sauce. So that's the only thing we take our time on up here, because I remember my mom would start, or my grandmother would start cooking sauce, like it seemed like 8 o'clock in the morning for dinner at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, and it was just like all day long. I could remember getting slapped on the back of my head because I'm going and grabbing a piece of bread, ripping off a piece of bread from the loaf and dipping it in the sauce, and I'd get yelled at because I just opened up the pot and somehow you ruin sauce by just lifting the lid and trying to taste it. But it was okay for her to do that, but not for me. But anyway, you can't argue with grandmas when they cook. So, Mr. E. Michael Davis II, we're back, and I was reading the back of your book. You are a retired first sergeant.
Yeah.
I am not. I had that duty. I was an acting first sergeant for a year. Never want that job again. I applaud you, friend.
Yeah, it's like herding cats, really.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
You know.
That is the most thankless job, I think, in the military. Yeah, that is the most thankless job, because every other senior leadership position comes with, some kind of, I don't know, perks. Commanders got their perks. Sergeant majors have their perks. Battalion commanders, so on and so forth. Just the first sergeant, I don't know. I wouldn't wish that on my enemy. I enjoyed doing it for a year, but how did you enjoy? Well, I'm not going to say you enjoyed it. What were your experiences being a first sergeant, and what did you take away from the position?
Well, my first gig as first sergeant, I was an acting first sergeant of RAAC over in Germany, and that was sort of work-a-day meh. You know, like you said, a lot of paperwork, a lot of hassle, a lot of thankless nothing. But I had a good company commander. He was a good guy. Took care of me. Then the next mission I had was to Iraq as the first sergeant of a PSD company. First Motorized Infantry Company Provisional under Minsticky, which is the training and doctrine advisors for the Iraqi Army and security forces. We were the only combatant command under Minsticky. And I had an incredible commander. He was a major instead of a company commander.
Okay.
And just a really great guy. He's a armor officer and, just incredible human being. We worked together, like peas and carrots. Additionally, because it was the mission it was, a PSD mission for all the general officers and their lieutenant sergeants, major under Stiggies, we got 18, I believe, GOs. And our crew was effectively hand-picked. We had MPs, infantry, and a few truck drivers. And with, you always have exceptions, but the vast majority of my troops were just such professionals. They're real go-getters, and half of the NCOs are now officers. They went Mustang and moved on up. Just really quality people. I was able to snatch a couple of guys that I knew from other units and bring them with me, get their orders changed over and reassigned to us. And honestly, it was a blast. Yeah, I mean, it was herding cats still, but with that level of professionalism and the people I worked with and, the mission, it couldn't have gone any better. We had a lot of fun in spite of, I think it was 4 Purple Hearts, including mine, that came out of that mission, and 85% of my guys got combat action badges, so it was some getting shot at and running and gunning through downtown Baghdad, and all over really. But it was a good mission, and wouldn't trade it for the world, man. It was wouldn't want to do it again, but wouldn't trade it for the world.
Right. Mine, I had a good core of guys around me, and guys and girls. I just use guys as a figure of speech. I had a good core of people around me that helped make the job. The mission I had for a year, it made it smoother. It made it good. But on the other hand, I equate everybody else around me was John Candy from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's just, I love you. You make me laugh once in a while, but for the most part, I really want to strangle you. And that's, I enjoyed it. The troops that I had that I led for that year, it was fun. Unfortunately, I did not have the greatest of commanders. She was great, but she was leaving. She was just waiting to be transferred, and that was all that was on her mind. So she was like, "Here, it's your ball, it's your yard, just run with it." So I had a lot of, I did. Let's just say I did a lot of cut and pasting with her signature. Because she was in a completely different state by that time, and we're just waiting for
some auto pen officially, an auto pen. Remember that when you're in front of.
Yes. Yeah. It was. So it was a lot of learning. I went in as as a decent NCO. I came out of that job as I feel a great NCO. That if I am ever offered the position of first sergeant officially, I might go and get my commission. Thank you, but no thank you. So it's just something different. But stepping away from that, how can people get your book? Since Christmas is right around the corner and Hanukkah is right around the corner, how can people get the books that you have penned so far as a good stocking stuffer or something under the tree?
Thank you. Yeah, you can get both of them at Amazon, and they're both I think $10, but they're perpetually on sale. You know how Amazon is with their well, so I think they're $9, and of course if you're a Prime member, then you get shipping for free. So or you can get them as Kindle books electronically. I think they're $4 uh, as a Kindle book. And then if you want a signed copy, I can hook you up there. You'll have to go on to Square's website and look me up. I think it's under EMDII, EMD2. And I'll ship it straight from me as a signed copy to you. But, I'm no Hemingway, obviously, so it'll probably never be worth anything. But or if you're local to the Jacksonville area, just hit me up. I'm on Facebook. It's E. Michael Davis 2 is my public persona as well. So just hit me up on the public page, and I'll bring one out to you, and we'll chat, and talk, and maybe go to the range or something cool.
There you go. My co-host, I think. I'm not going to say for sure, but he has ties to the North Florida area. Maybe Jacksonville. I'm not too sure, and he might be going out there. I think it would be cool to get a couple authors together, and you guys go out to the range. I'm thinking you guys would have a blast. Which brings me to a good a good question. Have you ever, because we talked about this on Sunday Night Show, we talked about it with our Tactical 16's newest author, and then Rob and myself dove into it a lot after the interview. What is your level of reviews? Because some reviews can be extremely harsh on on the internet, as a whole, on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or anything like that. You get those 5-star reviews, you're all sorts of happy and excited. Then you see that 1-star review, and it just rips your heart out of your chest. Do you really care about the feedback that you get from the books? Does it help you? I don't even know if you've gotten anything under a 5-star review. What's your take on that instant thought from the people that read your books?
I think it's absolutely something that you should pay attention to on the level of a learning experience, one way or another. The fact is, any criticism is good criticism to me, whether it's somebody raving about it or somebody saying, hey, you suck and here's why. Because I've written several online things as well, and been published in a couple of journals, and in addition to the books. But here's the thing: you're not going to please everyone. Even as a historian, even publishing, trying to stay as unbiased as possible, and trying to present, the Joe Friday story, just the facts. You're still going to piss somebody off because even remaining unbiased, you've got a story to tell. Therefore, you can't get away from a bias. You're telling a story for a reason, and someone out there is going to have a diametrically opposed viewpoint. I write for Gruntworks sometimes, Sons of Liberty sometimes, and and I work on the side for Sage Dynamics as a firearms instructor. And talk about drama. Get 5 different firearms instructors with 5 different theories in a room and see where that goes. It's the same thing with historians. It's the same thing with cops. It's the same thing with social scientists. Everybody's got a different take on what's going on, and to me, any of that criticism comes out, especially if it is constructive. Mm-hmm. It's something to learn from, something to build on. Am I worried about some jerk who gets on there and tells me, I suck because I hate puppies and babies, or I'm not worried about that guy. You know, but if they get on there and disagree and say I disagree and here's why, that's still constructive to me, because maybe in the next book I'll address that, or maybe I'll rethink what I have to say, because I don't think, with the exception of certain moral and ethical values, we should be static in anything we think. If new evidence comes to light about something, take that into account.
Yeah,
And I think
might be the difference with like the books that you've written so far, historical books. I think the only backlash you might get is some history buff who's like, that didn't happen in 1740, it happened in 1739. They might get that. I tell you what, it's a whole different level when you write like a biography or autobiography, and it happens to be around with the military. Some of our writers and some of my friends have written books about that. And some of the backlash that they get from people that might have been in the same region at the same time, and maybe a different brigade or different regiment or whatever the case may be, and just some of that. I think some of the worst reviews that I've seen are individuals in the military, and it's almost like, I don't know, like you said, any and all criticism is good. It'll make you a better person. It'll make you a better author. It'll make you a better writer. It'll make you, venture work, a little bit more. Some of it I've seen, though, it looks like some people may have a level of resentment because you're telling a story they were a part of, and they didn't do it. It's weird. Then there's other stuff I've seen, some of the ratings on our books, and some of my friends who are authors, just glowing reviews like this really opened up my eyes to this or that or whatever the case may be. So it's you got to take it with a grain of salt, and it's fascinating though, just the level of what people feels that they could get away with on the internet as opposed to saying something to your face. I call them keyboard tough guys. They'll get tough with you behind a keyboard, but in your face, not so much. It's a different approach that people have. And I think that's one of the weird things that we have with this wonderful technology called the internet.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't catch the very end where the question was.
Oh, I was saying like that level of what people feel they could get away with on the internet, whether it's good, bad, indifferent. What's your take on just how people act like nowadays? How people act, with an outlet of the internet where we have authors that would have never been authors before, thanks to the internet, and we also have professional critics, thanks to the internet. What's your take on just how the internet has brought out maybe the best and the worst in people?
Right. Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head. There's the internet tough guys who they've got a point to make, and they're going to troll and whatever until they get a reaction out of you, or until you shut them down or block them or whatever. There's a saying we have here in the South. It says an armed society is a polite society, and that it goes back to the sort of things that if you know that you might get hit in the mouth for something you're saying, you're probably not going to say it the way you thought it in your head or the way you might have typed it on the keyboard on the internet. That combined with, there's a debate about whether or not desensitization, yeah, I could speak English. Anyway, being desensitized to violence via the internet, via, television and music and all these other things, whether or not it's true. But, we watched the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show back in the day, and people got anvils dropped on their head. I didn't go around dropping anvils on people's heads,
I use that phrase at school. I actually today at school, someone was a major a major douchebag in class, and I looked at my buddy. I'm like, I wish I had an anvil to drop on his head. So I'm a big fan of anvils and not knowing gravity, so you could just run right off a cliff and just keep running. We got a back
I
connection.
think, yeah, I think I'm getting a bad connection here.
Yeah, well, we're gonna be wrapping up shortly on your end, and then I'll close the show. But I just spoke with my co-host Rob. When his book comes out, he's gonna be in the Jacksonville area doing a book signing. So you guys are definitely gonna have to get together. You could swap books and maybe throw some lead down range.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a range within, I think, 3 miles of the house here. In fact, most afternoons when it's clear, you can hear the lovely sound of musketry in the distance. But yeah, we'll go down there, sling some lead, drink some adult beverages afterwards, and have a good time, man. And likewise, if you're ever in the neighborhood, feel free to give me a call, and we'll.
Listen, I have a horror story with North Florida. I got lost in Jacksonville once. I was driving down from New York to Florida, and I got caught in a rainstorm in Jacksonville. I didn't realize how big that city was, area-wise. It seemed like I was in Jacksonville for about 15 days driving. It was insane. It was insane.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's the largest city land-wise in the continental U.S.
Yeah, isn't it
because
like
the county?
Yeah, the entire county is actually the city.
Yeah. So it reminds me of when I lived in England. Cambridge is a lot like Jacksonville in so much as the traffic is crazy and there's a ring road and all this stuff. And I remember reading a Douglas Adams book, and they were talking about Cambridge. They said the only way to leave Cambridge is actually keep going around the ring road until you reach terminal velocity and actually break free of the gravitational pull of the city. So I think maybe before you can get out of Jacksonville.
Nice. Before we get going, I do want to say thank you for being on this evening, and I hope some people go to Amazon and pick up your books. I'm looking at them. I got the Amazon page up right now. I'm looking at, and it's you are correct. It looks like the one is $9. It's on sale, and I am a Prime member, so you get that free shipping with Amazon Prime. You also get to watch a lot of really good shows on the internet on your Kindle if you have a Kindle. So after you read the book on Kindle, you can watch a really good show on Amazon Prime. See, I'm trying to butter up to Amazon right now. Maybe get them as a sponsor. Hey, Amazon, I'll do your biddings. Go to Amazon. No.
Right? Well, I got to honestly say they've treated me really well, and I'm an Amazon Prime member as well. Dude, I love that. I do half my Christmas shopping right on Amazon Prime and get that to me in 2 days, you know?
That's what I did last year. You got a direct connection with Santa's Workshop. Amazon Prime membership. But before we get going, like I said, I do want to say thank you for being on, and wonderful books. As a fan of history, and for a time I wanted to be a history teacher until I realized they didn't really get paid too well, so I decided to join the Army, where they get paid even less. But on a historical level, being a fan of history, these are some awesome books. And it's just, I go to bed every night now. I got my iPad up, and I've been on this kick. The last couple of weeks I was watching a series about ancient Egypt, like a 10-part series. Now I'm diving into World War I. But yeah, just as a fan of history, these books are awesome, dude. I want to say thank you for writing 2 really good books that one of my favorite subjects.
And I guess you've stopped now. I was going to say thank you for having me on. I'm sorry that last bit was sounded like a robot from the 50s and stuff. But but that's, I'm sure, on my end, because I've got that wonderful internet connection. But The long and short is, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I want to thank my family, my girlfriend for letting me have some time off from doing the dishes and the laundry, which is my chores here at the house. But I'm still going to have to go out and feed the horses afterwards. And hope to meet you guys in person soon. And keep in touch, brother.
Well, definitely. I'd like to talk to you down the near future-ish road about that latest book you got. Maybe get you under the Tactical 16 umbrella. And so, with that being said, also in the future, I know with the holidays coming up pretty soon, it might be iffy, but I'll try to get you on the Sunday night show if your girlfriend will let you stay up a little late. You'll get your chores done before that show. But thanks again for being on, man, and have a very safe and happy Christmas and New Year's, and I'll talk to you soon, dude.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right, you too. That was E. Michael Davis II, author of Misadventures in the Middle East, A Twisted Road to an Unlikely Third World War, and Huguenots and Catholics, The Fight for Colonial Florida. Like I said, 2 awesome books. Get them. If you're a fan of history, get them. That's all I got to say about that. And hopefully we'll get them on a future Center Mass show if it's not past this bedtime. It's a later show. Listen, when you have your 2 co-hosts are on opposite coasts, we literally are the coast to coast radio on Sunday night with Center Mass with Rob and Silent J. But anyway, before I get going, I'm gonna wrap up the show a few minutes early just because I want to. And it's snowing outside, so I want to see what it looks like. We got an inch since the show started. Yuck. But anyway, I got a guest that's going to be on next week, but I forgot his name, so I can't really fully, plug the individual. But I do got a guest that's going to be on next week. Again, I forgot the name. Oh, well, I'm a busy man, okay? I got a lot of things going on in my life, like finals. So, it's going to be a short show next week, all right? Because I have a final on Thursday. Actually, I have two finals. Two finals next Thursday. So Wednesday, gonna be a short show. Gonna be an hour-long show. Okay? So my guest is fun, but I can't remember his name. I'm doing a horrible job at plugging the show for next week. But anyway, tune in to the show next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ooh, yeah! Because it's macho, all right? And then check me out Sunday nights, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Center Mass with Rob and Silent J. And before we get going, I want to say that this semester is almost over, and I'm not really mentally burnt out from it. Like some people get burnt out. Listen, I'm doing an easy thing, all right? I'm going for media, all right? Fairly easy. You don't got to be that smart working in media. Trust me. I'm living proof. All right? I'm an intelligent guy, but you don't have to be that smart because I know others that are not as quite up on the intellectual scale as I in the media world. So you don't got to be that smart. All right? So therefore, school isn't that tough if you go for the whole media thing. You get one of those weird curveballs every once in a while, like rhetoric, which is just annoying. It's just persuasive speaking. Could I just argue with my professor about what my grade should be? Like, if I do a good enough job to prove to my guide, so to speak, that my grade should be an A, it should be an A because I've practiced what he preaches, and I'm a persuasive speaker. So that's all rhetoric should be. You should just sit down and you should just argue your case for a good grade. You know? And if you suck at it, get an F. Get the F out. No, get out with your F. Leave. But if you do a good job in arguing your point in rhetoric, you should get an A automatically. There should be no course, no class, no program for rhetoric in college. It should be a go, no go. It's an A or an F, and that's it. That's the bottom line because Silent J said so. It seriously is. I should just sit down and I should be able to get 10 minutes, 15, let's go 30 on the extended scale. Maybe tops 30 minutes, no more than 30, no less than 10. Give me 10 to 30. Yeah, I'll float around 17 and a half. Give me 7. You put me in a room with somebody for 17 and a half minutes, and I'm going to get a grade I want. And that's it. Why am I taking a class on how to be a persuasive speaker? All right? It's annoying. You either talk or you don't. A class cannot teach you how to talk. A class cannot teach you how to speak. And those public speaking classes, that's a line of BS. You know what that is? That is snake oil with credits attached to it. Public speaking classes should be snake oil salesman, 3 credits, 3 credit hours. That's what public speaking is. Because really, you either got it or you don't. You're never going to get it. It's not a learned thing. It's not a learned process. It's not a learned art form of speaking in front of people. From the get-go, I knew how to speak in front of people. I have refined my skills over the years by speaking in front of people. The first time I did stand-up comedy, it wasn't that good because of the material. I didn't really know myself on stage. But I had no problem going up there. I had no problem talking to people. I had no problem painting a picture with my voice and my imagination, okay? I am the Bob Ross of entertainment. I'll paint you a happy little cloud if I want to. And if not, let's go on a trip. But you cannot teach somebody the art form of speaking to other people, because there's some people out there that are very intelligent people. You all know that smart person that's just dumb, the smart dummy, that smart guy who is just, it's almost as if that fleshy vessel, it stole somebody else's brain. You know what I mean? It's like that body, that person should not have that brain, or at least certain sections of that brain. Let me just dig around here. We don't need that cerebral cortex. Okay, maybe we need that frontal lobe, and I don't know what the hell you're doing with that part. I don't even know what that part of the brain is. I already said all the brain phrases that I know. But really smart people that don't know how to speak publicly is just, they're an annoyance. They're a nuisance. Okay, that it's really annoying. And then you get that really fascinating individual who talks, just captivating, but is just dumb as a box of rocks. Everybody knows that guy that hangs out on the corner. Everybody listens to him talk, and the only reason why they listen to him is because he's an enthusiastic dummy. You know, everybody's got that guy that they know. That's just, oh, why do you hang around with him? You hear him talk? He's funny. He makes me laugh. Yeah, but he's dumb. I know. That's the beauty of it. And then there's individuals like myself. I can talk, and I'm smart, and I'm funny. But in all seriousness, I don't feel. This isn't, sensitivity time with talking with a liberal woman, okay? I feel. You ever notice that when you ever date a very liberal woman, you gotta say, I feel and I care, and I have this opinion. Bah! I don't feel. I know with all certainty that it is an art form to speak to people. It's not learned. You're born with it. It's a skill. It's a trait. It's a genetic code. Once you find the ability to do that, then you can hone your skills. That's it. There's people I'm talking to in school that are taking public speaking now, or will be taking public speaking next semester. And it's like, if you walk out of that class with an A, you're an idiot. And so is the instructor, the professor, the teacher, whatever you want to call him. Because what, 13, 14 classes is not going to make, so that A is not really earned. That A is just you're okay with the course material. You did go with the course material, but you're not really a public speaker. And then you go to advanced public speaking, and guess what? You're really not that good. You just hit on all cylinders for the course outline, so to speak. There's no advanced public speak. And then acting class, that's a joke. It is. You either born with it or you're not. I'm saying this because I was offended today. Somebody said, "Oh, you do a radio show?" I can do a radio show. No, you can't. You can't even wash your face before you go to school and tie your shoes. Hey, mustard lips, wipe your face off before you talk to me and say you could do a radio show. Crooked pants and all this stuff. Dude, just look. He looked like he was thrown into a dryer with a pastrami sandwich with extra mustard and then just put on the permanent press cycle. That guy was beat to shreds. He look. If idiot is a form, he's a whole bag of them. Okay. If there was like, like what was that show? The siblings, they had the ring. And like in the form of a dragon, and then the girl would be a dragon, and then her brother was an idiot. He's like in the form of a car, and he'd turn into a bucket. And like you got a dragon trying to save the day, wielding a bucket. What were they called? I forgot. Super siblings? I don't know. Where the hell was I even going with that? Oh, I know. If you had this magic ring and you're like in the form of an idiot, you would turn into that guy that I had this unfortunate pleasure of speaking with today. He is in the form of an idiot, not just one. He's in the form of idiot personified. He's a whole entire bag, a clear plastic bag of idiots, so you can identify how many idiots are in that bag. That's him, idiot personified. He's like, I could do a radio show. No, you can't. You can't do a radio show. So I gave him my card. Like, you cannot do a radio show, but you can listen to mine. Okay? I don't want you feeling you can do what I do. I don't want anybody out there feeling they can do what I can do. I like you to try. I like a good entertainment substitute once in a while, other than what I do normally for entertainment. Just, I don't even know what I do for entertainment. My neighbors were over last night. They came upstairs. We had a couple drinks last night. That was it. It was dark. It was dorky. I was going to say it was dumb, but it wasn't really dumb. It was fun, but it was dorky, to say the least. Because when you become an adult, fun time is really boring. Like, 20-year-olds are stupid. Pretty much every 20-year-old I know is a dummy. Actually, not pretty much. Every 20-year-old, I'm going to say this with conviction. Every 20-year-old I know is a dummy. Every single one of them. Okay? I was at that time, too. But 20-year-olds, they can have fun. It's not intelligent fun. It's not fun you're going to wake up reminiscing the next morning. Oh, man, that was so much fun. It's 20-year-old fun is capped off with something traumatic or something debilitating for your future growth as a human being. There's traumatic experiences. Whereas I'm in my mid-30s. I am closer to 70 than 0. Let's just put it that way. My fun is boring, but you can have consistent, boring fun when you're in your mid-30s. And if you're like 40, you're definitely boring. You're very boring. But you could have even more fun at 40 than 20. Because you're going to wake up, because hopefully by the time you're 40-ish, up there, you've learned your lesson. So you're not doing the hangover thing. You're not doing the crazy hanging upside down from, a banister thing, doing a shot of Goldschlager through your nose. It's not that kind of fun, okay? We're not going to paint the town stupid. 35, it's like, okay, every once in a while you get somebody in your group that's like, hey, remember when we used to do this? And they would try it, and then it looks kind of like, it looks like a baby deer trying to run across a frozen pond. It's like, that's funny, but dude's going to break his neck.
That's what 30-something-year-old fun is. Early 20s is fun, really good fun, like authentic fun with a lot of downfalls and pits. Okay, it's like playing Pitfall. At the time, it was really cool. Hindsight is 2020. There's more pixels now, and Pitfall really blows. Okay, that's called a pitfall. So, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to go have some mid-30s fun by myself. Not like that, you perverts, gross sickos. I'm going to have some fun by myself. You know what that means? That means whiskey and oh, I can't do laundry. That means whiskey and dishes. Bishes. See, I can't swear on here anymore. I'm going to go have me a little bit of whiskey, and I'm going to do dishes because I'm 35, baby, and it is fun. With the amount of knowledge that I have gained, I realize that I really do have a little bit of fun doing the dishes. You know why? Because I can have a clean sink at the end of the adventure. Okay, it started off with dirty dishes. Now I'm going to go do my dishes, and then it's fun. Look, I don't got to do dishes anymore. I got a clean glass. I'm going to have more whiskey. I'm going to go sit down and watch a documentary about World War I on Hulu Plus after I do dishes. Boo, that's not fun. But it is sustainable. It's a sustainable activity. You can do dishes and have whiskey every night, okay? You're not going to do that when you're 20. You know what you're going to do? You're going to have way too much whiskey when you're 20 and then break all the dishes. And when you're 40, you just do dishes. You just skip the whiskey completely. So I'm going to go have some old people fun. All you young people out there, don't think you can do what I can do. Okay? No. Because see, I got soul. All right? So I'm going to go. All right? This is Tactical 16 Radio. I am... You smell that? That's positive energy being released. I am Silent J. This is Tactical 16 Radio. Catch me Sunday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Center Mass with Robin Silent J. And next Wednesday, I will see you 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Tactical 16 Radio with Silent J. Education through entertainment. Okay? That's the new tagline. That's the moniker. I'm sticking with it. Okay? Because I know it's good for me. Because I am a mid-30s college freshman.
For my family, for my friends, for those that we lost our say, this is a message, this is for you. Never forget the Lower East Side Club. For my family, for my friends, for those that we lost